All right, the grand jury investigating former President Trump has still not handed down an indictment and will not be convening for the rest of the week.
That's right. National correspondent Mike Carter is live outside the Lower Manhattan courthouse with the latest. Mike.
That's right, guys. There will be no indictment of former President Trump this week. The Manhattan grand jury reconvening on Monday next week to get back to that case. Meanwhile, Manhattan prosecutor Alvin Bragg, his office rejecting a letter sent by House GOP chairs James Comer and Jim Jordan on Monday, saying that that office does not plan to testify in front of Congress or cooperate really in any means with that request by House Republicans. Today, Donald Trump also adding to the fanfare of goings-on here at the Manhattan Criminal Courthouse this week. He released a press release a short time ago in which the former president writes, "Total disarray in the Manhattan DA's office, tremendous dissension and chaos because they have no case. And many of the honest people in the office know it and want to do the right thing. They think back to the late, great Bob Morgenthau," that's the former Manhattan DA, "the best ever, and know what he would have done. Justice for all." Well, new developments in this case stem from another letter drafted to the FEC by one of Michael Cohen's former attorneys in 2018, in which it's alleged that Cohen was not reimbursed by Donald Trump or the Trump Organization for hush money payments made to Stormy Daniels. The letter, published by the Daily Mail, has not been independently verified by Newsmax, but it seems to contradict Cohen's recent grand jury testimony in this case. It reads, "Neither the Trump Organization nor the Trump campaign was a party to the transaction with Miss Clifford, aka Stormy Daniels, and neither reimbursed Mr. Cohen for the payment directly or indirectly." Well, on Monday, Michael Cohen's former legal advisor, Bob Costello, spoke for over 2 hours to the Manhattan grand jury. He also provided more than 5 dockets of information to those grand jury members. Remains to be seen how much of that information was ultimately handed over to those grand jury members. But here's what Bob Costello had to say after his appearance on Monday.
The heart of it is that Michael Cohen told us that he was approached by Stormy Daniels' lawyer, and Stormy Daniels had negative information that she wanted to put in a lawsuit against Trump. So Michael Cohen decided on his own, that's what he told us, on his own, to see if he could take care of this. So he sat with the lawyer for Stormy Daniels. They negotiated a non-disclosure agreement for $130,000. So I said, "Michael, where did you get the $130,000? Is that Trump's money?" "No, it's not." "Well, where did you get it? Did you take it out of your own account?" "No." Again, how did you get it? "I took out a HELOC loan for $130,000. I said, "Why would you do that?" He said, "Because I wanted to keep this secret."
Well, Donald Trump says if he is ultimately indicted, he wants to be handcuffed. He's even been considering what to do if the time comes when a mugshot may need to be taken, and what that might look like, whether he should smile or not. On Wednesday, Jim Jordan sent a letter to 2 former Manhattan DA prosecutors asking them to now appear in front of Congress. Donald Trump says, guys, he wants this to be a spectacle. Certainly appears like he's getting that wish.
All right, Michael, thank you very much, sir.
All right. Before we even have our next guest come in, you know, Deneen, it's interesting because we're hearing these reports, and then you hear that getting indicted might help Donald Trump, but then you're also hearing that it won't help him, but then you're hearing he wants to make it a spectacle. Is that a good strategy if it happens?
The best strategy was that he came out ahead of all of this, before any of it was leaked or whatever. So he's playing by his own rules with this. But what Americans are seeing, especially Trump supporters, is how they continue to hammer him and go after him on everything, no matter what. Now, even though his record for our country was successful.
Well, one of the things he did, though, initially, he said protest, protest, protest. Right, remember, he was on Truth Social, and then he seemed to back off that. But now he says he wants a spectacle, like you're saying. He always controls the narrative, doesn't he? But it seems as though maybe, does he want a spectacle, or is he just saying that?
Former President Trump knows how to use the media to his full advantage. To Deneen's point, he preempted the impending indictment and totally changed the whole dynamic. He literally just threw a grenade into the whole thing. Because think of what would have happened otherwise. He might have gotten indicted, and then Mr. Costello wouldn't have had his chance. It would have been game over. So by preempting, he totally changed the game, and that's what Trump is very good at. It's very difficult, as Deneen and I have talked about it, to go micromanage, Trump because he does this, he does that.
Right.
You sit back and you look at the big picture, you see what he did. He upset the entire apple cart.
Yeah, he certainly is a master of controlling the narrative. So let's continue the conversation with former U.S. Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker. Matt, give me your feel on what's been going on with this. Earlier in the week, we were trying to pick a date that we might see an indictment, but now I think a lot of people are wondering, is there even going to be an indictment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's good to be with you all. It's good to see my friends Tom and Deneen sitting there at the table as well. What I know about this case is that it has turned 180 degrees from last weekend. And, the developments have been, not only did Robert Costello testify in front of the grand jury, and they say the exact opposite of what Michael Cohen was saying, but we also now have this letter that was allegedly provided to the FEC during a campaign finance investigation that says that Michael Cohen is saying the exact opposite of what he is now saying. And so, while we've always said that a convicted felon, that one of the counts was lying to Congress, is not a good witness to base a case on, you now are going to have the great fortune of, if he goes to trial, him having to answer the question, are you lying now or are you lying then? Plus, you're going to have Mr. Costello testify that he's lying now.
Yeah, and Deneen, it's a lot of people look at this case and go, first of all, you're kind of forcing it into being something it's not, a misdemeanor into a felony. This is assuming all the allegations are correct to begin with.
Sure. Well, how many feds wouldn't touch it anyway? I think 3.
Right.
And yeah.
We know how much they like President Trump.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like they're fans.
I'm out.
Right. Yeah. But Bragg should be held accountable for this on all ends. First of all, his dereliction of duty for the city of New York, with the high crime rates that are taking place, people coming. It's like a revolving door with people when they go to jail and they're out before the paperwork is even signed. And I feel bad for our police officers.
Because politics has taken over the priorities and interests of the American people.
Yeah.
It's all politics all the time. And one of the biggest concerns I now have about this entire affair, it is a huge news story and we do have to cover it, but the opportunity cost, what aren't we talking about? Biden's inflation, the banking crisis, Xi and Putin today.
Absolutely, absolutely.
The border.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tom. Matt, Tom makes a great point there. Politics seems to be taking over, actually focusing on what all of these elected officials should be doing, which is focusing on Americans.
Yeah, and not only focusing on their neighbors' safety and security, but, this is why our founding fathers intended the grand jury process to be secret. And in special counsel investigations, and it seems like every other investigation is Donald Trump, he's the only person that hasn't been availed of those, secrecy rights of grand jury proceedings. And so he has to then speak out and fight against it and otherwise engage because, they're trying to ruin his reputation because being under investigation puts a cloud of uncertainty on many people.
Let me ask you this, though, Matt, before we go. Some people are uncomfortable with the idea that Congress now wants to call Alvin Bragg in front of them and ask questions about what are you doing. Certainly there's political interest in doing that, but do you want to see a point in which the political party in charge in Washington, because in another time it's going to be Democrats, that they're suddenly able to call people in front of them and say, you're not prosecuting the right people, of somebody that, what did they argue yesterday, is a borough DA, in New York. Your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are quickly, if you read that letter that Jordan and others wrote, it outlines the federal interests, and they shouldn't be able to pull Mr. Bragg in front of them and ask them unlimited questions because, again, we have a separation of powers issues between the states and the federal government. But there are some national interests, and that includes whether federal people or federal money was used in this investigation. Those are legitimate, interesting inquiry places.
Yeah. All right, Matt Whitaker, thanks so much for joining this conversation. I know we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
All right. And joining us to continue the conversation, former Ronald Reagan advisor, Ed Rollins. Ed, great to have you here with us. What do you think about the pending indictment against former President Trump? Do you think Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg is just going to drop it because he's realized he has nothing there?
I hate to disagree with my friends, and there are many friends on here, including Al D'Amato, who's one of the great politicians, great friend. He's going to indict. There's no question. He has to wave the white flag. This is a Democrat city. You have to remember, Trump got 23% of the vote in Manhattan. They're going to indict him. They're going to do everything they can to mess him up. It's the wrong environment, I think, and it's probably the wrong case. But don't think they're going to walk away from this. And the Congress wants to fight him, it'll be even a bigger show for them. This is a Democrat town. This is not a Republican town. This is a Democrat town. And the public is not going to get outraged. You have 23 members of the grand jury. You only have to get 12 of them to get an indictment. And if you haven't picked carefully enough to have those 23 all being anti-Trump, I'd be shocked. So I think there'll be an indictment next week or the following week, and then we'll have to see what they're going to present.
Ed, this is Deneen. We go way back. It's good to see you.
How are you, dear?
Unfortunately, Tom is still here, but I'm still working on it.
I was going to ask you, you still marry that smart old man?
I'll call you. Are you surprised at the level of craziness that Alvin Bragg has gone through to try to torpedo President Trump?
I think he's a total incompetent. I think he's been incompetent since the day he got elected. I think he basically has many pressures against him. And I think he had pretty much made a decision. He didn't want to do this. He didn't have the evidence. But whatever pressures or counter pressures have come on him, that he's now moved the ball forward. And I think if he waves the white flag today, I'm just as a guy that studies people and politics, I think he'll pay a heavy price among his constituents, not among the public per se, but among his constituents. Yeah, Ed, so I think he's going to march forward.
You've seen a lot of battles over the years, been with some of the best. So I respect your opinion on what you see between Trump and DeSantis, how that's unfolding. A lot of people feel that Trump certainly has a solid support, but he would lose against Biden. Yet DeSantis doesn't have enough support within the party. I wanted to get your insight on that.
There's a long ways to go. And as you may know, I was a big Trump supporter. I ran the Great America PAC. I raised $60, $70 million for the president and his programs. And I was very sorry the day he lost.